Have you ever looked at a map and wondered why Russia is so enormous? Its borders stretch across a mind-boggling 11 time zones, making it the largest country on Earth. The story of how it got this big isn't just about lines on a map. It's a dramatic tale of conquest, collapse, and incredible survival spanning over 1,000 years. So how did this giant come to be? Let's rewind the clock and find out. Our story begins long before the name Russia even existed, with a civilization known as Kievan Rus. From the 9th to the 13th century, this was a loose federation of East Slavic states, with its heart in the city of Kiev. This was the cradle of what would become Russian culture, the Orthodox faith, and the very concept of its power. For centuries, it flourished, a vibrant network of trade routes and growing cities. But in the 1200s, a storm gathered on the eastern horizon, one that would change everything. From the steppes of Central Asia, the Mongol Empire swept in with unstoppable force. Cities were burned to the ground, and the lands of the Rus were conquered. For the next 200 years, the Russian principalities lived under what they called the Mongol yoke, paying tribute and answering to a foreign Khan. This period of subjugation left a deep and lasting scar. When the Mongol hold finally weakened and broke, a new power center rose from the ashes: Moscow. The rulers of this new state, known as Muscovy, were hardened by centuries of servitude and were fiercely determined to never be conquered again. This new mindset ignited an ambition that would reshape the world map. With newfound independence, Moscow began to look outward. Under formidable rulers like Ivan the Terrible in the 16th century and later, the visionary Peter the Great, Russia's expansion kicked into high gear. It wasn't just about defense anymore. It was about destiny. They pushed south against the Ottoman and Persian empires, north towards the Baltic Sea, and most dramatically, east into the vast, untamed wilderness of Siberia. Cossack adventurers, fur trappers, and armies marched across Asia, driven by the lure of riches and the promise of new territory. In an astonishingly short period, Russia's borders surged all the way to the Pacific Ocean. No empire in history had ever grown so large so quickly. By the 19th century, the Russian Empire was an undisputed global superpower, a behemoth of land and people. Its influence stretched from Poland in the west all the way to Alaska in the east, which it controlled until selling it to the United States in 1867. It was an empire of immense diversity, ruling over hundreds of different ethnic groups. But this vast power was built on a foundation of autocracy and control. To the rest of Europe, Russia was both an object of fascination and a source of deep-seated fear, the gendarme of Europe, a colossal power that could crush nations under its sheer weight. But the foundations of this mighty empire were cracking. In 1917, decades of internal pressure, war, and inequality erupted into revolution. The Tsar was overthrown, and the Romanov dynasty, which had ruled for 300 years, came to a bloody end. Out of the chaos, a new and radical state emerged: the Soviet Union. This wasn't an empire built on royalty, but on a powerful new ideology: communism. It reconquered many of the territories that had broken away, and its borders once again stretched from the heart of Europe to the shores of the Pacific. The end of World War II ushered in a new global conflict: the Cold War. The world was split into two camps, with the Soviet Union leading the Eastern Bloc against the Western powers led by the United States. The Iron Curtain, a term famously coined by Winston Churchill, descended across Europe, dividing the continent. For nearly half a century, the USSR projected its power and ideology across the globe, from Eastern Europe to Cuba, from Africa to Southeast Asia. It was the peak of its global influence, a superpower locked in a tense standoff for the future of humanity. Then, in 1991, the unthinkable happened. Weighed down by economic stagnation, nationalist movements, and a thirst for freedom, the Soviet Union collapsed. It was a political earthquake that sent shockwaves around the world. In its wake, 50 new independent nations emerged from the ashes of the old empire. From Ukraine and Belarus in Europe to Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan in Central Asia, Russia itself shrank dramatically, returning to borders that were still massive, but now surrounded by its former republics. So, from the humble beginnings of Kievan Rus to the sprawling Russian Federation we see today, this land has been shaped by 1,000 years of expansion, resistance, and constant reinvention. Its immense size is the legacy of ambitious Tsars, the relentless push into Siberia, and the ideological reach of the Soviet era. It's an empire forged in the bitter cold of its winters, a nation defined by its incredible resilience, and a story that is far from over. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey through time interesting, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that have shaped our world. See you next time.